This fresh coat of the startup life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexio Series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio Series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush, which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio Series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio Series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you. All right, Startup Nation. So, with everything going on with COVID-19, we're all trying to figure out a lot of stuff. Healthcare is definitely one of them. And so a lot of times there's a lot of frustration, outside of like the elements and stuff that we go through. There's a lot of frustration with like paperwork and finding the right provider and all the other stuff that goes along with, healthcare system and stuff like that. But today we have a great guest that's going to may have a solution for all that and kind of share her background and stuff like that. She is Alexi Alizadeh. Alexi, how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain. So first things first, just kind of tell us a little bit about your company, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So my name is Alexi Alizadeh, and I began Adviise as a consumer really frustrated with all of the inconsistencies and barriers to getting good care.
Right.
I became a mom a year and a half ago, and the process of finding a provider that I was comfortable with to care for me during my pregnancy and for my daughter after her birth was a painstakingly complex and inefficient process. Mm-hmm. So I decided I really wanted to create something to help simplify it.
Gotcha.
I had experience in government and regulation, and I previously worked in healthcare consulting and using technology to help make physicians and practices profitable after the changes brought on by the Affordable Care Act. So that, coupled with a health scare that I had, really propelled me to begin Adviise.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you're originally from the UAE, and you came over from the United States, and you had a bit of some health issues, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I did grow up in Dubai,
right.
And I really got to experience like rapid innovation in terms of infrastructure. Things are constantly changing there, and they really aren't afraid of change, of new ideas and new systems, and they just kind of adopt it and have something, in place until someone comes up with something better, and then they change it again. But it's a climate that isn't resistant to change, whereas here in the U.S., a lot of things about our infrastructure, especially in the medical industry, are so ingrained that we can't imagine them changing. And that was really a benefit growing up in a country that was really finding its way in like the late 90s and early 2000s and wasn't afraid of adopting new ideas and implementing them.
Gotcha.
When I did come here, I did have a stroke at the age of 22. And at the time, I didn't realize how it would change the trajectory of my career. But faced with kind of a paralyzing fear, and it made it very difficult to pick up the phone. Scheduling an appointment was difficult. Assembling health records that would result in a productive appointment was an immense challenge, and almost caused me to really forgo care. I mean, you just don't want to deal with it. It's just too much. It's too confusing. And today, even, a decade after the passage of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, the cracks in the healthcare system are really readily apparent to patients like me who often go unheard in their struggle to seek care, despite paying a greater portion out of pocket than ever before.
Gotcha.
So following my recovery, I was really ready to use my regulation policy background to bring about change in the industry.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask a quick follow-up because you talked about, some of that exposure and stuff like that and some of those cracks in the healthcare system. Are you seeing, from your vantage point as, the CEO of a health tech company, are you seeing any, some of those cracks even, further widening due to COVID and everything that's going on now?
Yes, I would say that there's a greater barrier to care. So a lot of people, are really forgoing care and taking, and going to their regular appointments because of the risk of COVID. And, a lot of doctors' offices, they take a lot of precautions. So, you're not waiting in waiting rooms instead of you're waiting in your car. And it just becomes really difficult for people to stay on top of their health, especially if they have chronic conditions, diabetes, cancer, something like that. That really needs to be managed. We want, we want to arm them with all the tools that they need to, stay on top of their care.
Startup Nation wanted to check out your website. What's that web address, if you don't mind, sharing that with us?
Yeah, so our web address is Adviise with 2 I's. So ADVIISE.com. Adviise with 2 I's.
Thank you so much. And Startup Nation, if you want to check out Adviise, we have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. Alexa, if you don't mind me asking, talk about some of those features, some from the patient side, some from the provider side, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we have, from the patient side, you can log on and you can see any doctor and do your, we're trying to arm you with information so that you can make the best decision possible. So we have a database of physicians and all medical providers. So it's doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, any kind of healthcare provider. And you can search based on location, and then you can compare reviews and their availability, see their training, and you're able to book in real time without having to call. And if they have their telemedicine platform set up, then you're able to see them right away on the platform. You can schedule, and then you get sent the link right away, and you can join the session. It takes a lot of the work out of finding a healthcare provider because a lot of us are just lost trying to find good care.
For sure. And I know a lot of people, they have these frustrations. I know my wife was having some frustrations with her healthcare provider, trying to find, a doctor's appointment and stuff like that. So having that real time, access
real-time
and transparency,
booking
it's super important. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Absolutely. No, you can be making phone calls, all day, and they can say, okay, maybe in 3 weeks we have an appointment, and you have to fit yourself into this one slot. If you have, a conflict, doesn't matter. That's all they have. And this way, if someone cancels, you get to see that appointment come up right away. You can book it. So hopefully it's same day or later in the week. It's not 3 weeks out, 6 weeks out where, you're not going to get seen, or by that time, it's resolved itself.
Right.
Whatever the issue is. So you really, I think that consistency and being able to access care immediately is very important. So that's what we want to bring.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And, on the provider side, one of the things that I thought was very interesting and I've always been fascinated by is the telemedicine part. Because, I'm looking at this Forbes article from a few hours ago as of this recording. And they were talking about a lot of people are kind of doing this kind of, the self-help kind of thing and stuff like that. And what great way to kind of, not necessarily go it completely alone, but to have that telemedicine part to your healthcare when you're having issues with getting an appointment in time and all that other stuff. But talk about that telemedicine part, because I'm always fascinated by that part.
Absolutely. So with telemedicine, you're really able to see a provider in real time. So if you have an issue, you can be seen right away. You can explain your problem, even if it's something that needs to be addressed in person. You can see a telemedicine provider first, and then you go to they can order imaging. So you just, they can order an X-ray, an MRI. You just go then to the imaging center. You don't have to go into a provider's office and then go to the imaging center and then go back to the provider's office, because you can be seen via telemedicine. They review your results. They order the imaging, you go to the imaging center, and then they review your results, and then they can drop ship you braces. They can drop ship you, anything you need. They can't put a cast on. So there are still, things that can't be done, via telemedicine. But in terms of ordering, ordering blood work or imaging or reviewing results. You can definitely do that via telemedicine. And I think one of the most exciting things really about telemedicine is the ability to see providers, say if you live in a rural area.
Absolutely.
You can keep a provider that, you don't have to go to your local doctor who might not be equipped to deal with something like this, that instead you can go you go online and see, the top expert in your state, and they can review your results and track your progress, and you get much better care that way than you would at your local doctor being seen in person, just because they're not equipped to handle something like a rare or serious chronic condition,
Absolutely.
So that's a big benefit we have.
Absolutely. You really hit it on the head. And, when we talk about, people in rural America and stuff like that, but also in urban America who are having other types of issues to get access to care as well, that telemedicine part can be not just a game changer, but a life changer.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. You don't have to, get childcare. The parents can't make it to appointments because they can't find a babysitter. No one can watch their child. I mean, there's so many benefits to telemedicine and being able to be seen one-on-one. Sometimes if you go to the doctor, I don't know if you've had this experience, but, you get seen by a medical assistant, and then the doctor kind of pops in for a little while, has like a moment with you, and then he's really super distracted and has to leave. And you get that really one-on-one time with a provider via telemedicine because they're not distracted. They're not, moving from room to room with the wrong notes in front of them. They're really dedicated to you for that specific amount of time. So you can get your questions answered and, get treated like a person. And I think that that's really beneficial.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing all of that for sure. And Startup Nation, once again, we're wrapping up with Alexi Alizadeh, the founder of Adviise. And so I want to just ask you and just leave us with this. Why is this work ultimately so important to you?
I think because I really wanted to build a patient-centric platform. I do not think that right now we are equipped to handle something like COVID. I think that we need to simplify the process for healthcare for providers and patients alike. But I really wanted to create something patient-centric with providers in mind that really would simplify the process, because for patients, it's really a challenge to get good care. And, it's ripe for disruption. This industry is really ripe for disruption. And I want to be part and help with that change.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I swear it's like trying to solve healthcare is like this never ending Rubik's Cube. So I'm glad we have people like yourself. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm glad we have people like you, Alexi, trying to help us out and try to find those solutions in a very complex solution. And I say in a very complex situation when you talk about healthcare, but we're definitely glad to have you doing that. And once again, Startup Nation, that website is Adviise, ADVIISE.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. Alexi, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing with us your wonderful company and what you're doing.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No worries. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the startup life. This fresh coat of the startup life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexio Series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio Series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush, which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio Series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio Series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you.